down to business.
We better get to it. What did we make of what the Mariners did yesterday? Did they do well in their Paul Sewald trade?
Yeah, I like the trade. And I think it's going to be one of those that we know if it was good sooner than most because, a lot of times when you're a team that's selling, you're doing so for prospects. In this case, Dominic Canzone is a big leaguer. Josh Rojas, we have a pretty decent sense of what Josh Rojas is already, actually. Ryan Bliss is super interesting because he's a guy who physically is, he's 5'6". He's 175 pounds. He's not going to intimidate anyone, but he also hit 360 at Double-A this year. And so there's some performance there that's really tantalizing. I talked with a couple of evaluators afterward, like, how did the Mariners do? And they thought Canzone's the best player in the deal. And that Bliss has some upside, but there are some questions from guys whether he's going to hit. And, Rojas, I'm not going to say he's like Abraham Toro because that didn't work out very well, but there are real questions about the bat. And you see that this year in a guy who's had 200-plus plate appearances and still hasn't hit a home run yet. But he can play all over the diamond, and having a good utility guy on the roster is imperative. He's just not going to be the carrying piece here. I think this trade hinges on Canzone and Bliss.
So how good is Canzone?
Well, he's a little bit older. He's 25, but, I think he was hitting like 340 and slugging over 600 in AAA this year, and just never was able to get at bats in Arizona because they have a pretty good outfield and a lot of depth there. And this trade for the Diamondbacks was a deal that made sense for them. I think they didn't see Rojas as an everyday guy anymore, and not sure if he ever was. They saw Canzone as superfluous because they have Alec Thomas and Corbin Carroll and Jake McCarthy, and they'd like to bring Lourdes Gurriel Jr. back. And Bliss, they have Ketel Marte at second base. They have Jordan Lawler as their shortstop of the future, and Geraldo Perdomo was an all-star this year, so he's pretty good too. So it was them trading in on their depth to get a guy in Paul Sewald who is reliable, who will take the ball every time you ask him to, and who's a great guy in the clubhouse too, and most of all, who has another year of control, which is vital to the Diamondbacks, whose bullpen has been absolutely wretched in the last 30 days, and who have aspirations to compete not just this year but next year too.
Jeff, as your vertebrae was healing over the last few weeks, I think we talked a lot about this trade deadline and talked a lot about Jerry doing what he's done a lot, which is buy and sell. And this move to me is a buy and sell. You obviously sell in the league closer. You buy, as you said, some major league ready bats that are gonna play right away. And in Canzone, I think sooner than later. Does this move in any way tell you that another one is coming over the next 6.5 hours?
I anticipate that we're going to see a fairly active Mariners team today. And if that means trading Teoscar Hernandez, I think that is well within the realm of possibility, though I'll be honest, I don't know how many teams are looking for an outfield bat at this point. And I think a lot of them that are look at the guys that they have internally and compare their numbers to Teoscar Hernandez's and say, are we really going for an upgrade here? And I don't think after giving up Eric Swanson in that deal, a guy who was a very effective reliever last year with a lot of club control, the Mariners are necessarily going to want to give up Teoscar Hernandez just for whatever someone's willing to offer. I also can see the Mariners go out and buying on the fringes, but I don't think it's going to be any big additions today, even though they've been playing really well over the last month, even though their record's among the best in the American League during that time. It's still a really big hill to climb for them with the teams that are ahead of them. And it's going to be interesting. I'm very interested to see what the Boston Red Sox do today because they're a team that's been playing pretty well too and is better positioned than the Mariners right now. And they may well be sellers.
So you'd be surprised at this point. There have been rumblings about Logan Gilbert in St. Louis, rumblings about Bryce Miller, rumblings about maybe just being creative and going big. At this point, you would be surprised if the organization takes that big of a step.
I think if the Mariners were to trade one of their controllable starting pitchers right now, the return would be a massive windfall. And I say that for two reasons. Number one, because frankly, I don't think they're going to do that right now. If at any point that happens, I think it's probably going to be the offseason. But beyond that, if you are trading one of those guys, boy, oh boy. I mean, you better get that right. Like, the Mariners have put themselves in this position where they are right now because it's clear they're very good at developing pitching. But when you see the price for Aaron Savali, who is not a Logan Gilbert or a Bryce Miller or a Brian Wu, who is a guy that's, been pretty decent in his career, but this year has taken a nice little step forward and only has 2.5 years of club control remaining, and he gets Kyle Manzardo, who's a really good prospect. I mean, the price that the Mariners have on their controllable starting pitching is high, which is precisely where it should be. And I'm just not sure anyone's ready to meet that at this point.